All right, folks, Duke Machado here, Latino StrikeForce, and I'm telling you, I'm very excited about our guest tonight, Matt Rinaldi, GOP, the state chairman of Texas Republican Party. Matt Rinaldi, former House representative, and he's just a super conservative. Proud to have him on the program tonight, and we're going to get into a great conversation. So you've picked a great show to watch, and I promise you're going to share this with all your friends, and we're going to get the word out about what's happening in Texas politics with Latinos, with the Hispanics here in Texas, Republican Party. Get ready, folks. Matt Rinaldi, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing, dude?
Well, I'm great. There's a lot of things happening nationwide. Everyone's talking about the Trump FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago. More news is coming out about, who authorized that and their connections with Jeffrey Epstein. Tell me, does this have legs, or is this dead in the water already?
Does the
F-
FBI action have legs, or does the
yes.
response to the FBI action have legs? I think
Yeah, maybe both.
well, no, it's a complete pretext. I don't know what they were looking for, whether they were looking for January 6th stuff in there, but this whole Presidential Records Act pretext is exactly that. I mean, a president can declassify records at will if he disseminates those documents, that he unclassifies. That's the way the law is. President Obama in 2009 issued an executive order setting those guidelines. So he couldn't have violated the Presidential Records Act. And you know what? Unless there were severed heads in a freezer somewhere at Mar-a-Lago, there was no reason to do this through a raid. Okay? They should have done it by a subpoena. They should have issued the subpoena, and he could have produced the documents they want. But the FBI is trying to intimidate conservatives into silence. And I think it's going to motivate Republican voters.
Totally going to backfire on them. It is doing that, exactly, motivating voters. And look, this program, we try to talk about enhancing or growing the Latino vote, the conservative, the Republican Latinos. And don't have to tell you the numbers. There's a lot of potential Latino voters who just aren't showing up. And what are your thoughts on that? Is that a problem that we have as a party, or is that? Tell me how we get more conservative Latinos to show up at the polls. Because we're the ones. I mean, we here in Texas, we could make the change. We could save the state. We could, hold the line if we engage.
I agree. And I'm extremely optimistic, specifically because of the Latino voters in the state of Texas and the political realignment we've seen over the past 4 years with the Republican Party going away from the corporatism, becoming the party of big business, and instead becoming the party of small business and the workers. And the middle class in America. And that appeals to Latino voters especially. And you know what? As the Democratic Party controls things, as they weaponize the DOJ against political dissenters, as they work hand in hand with corporations to silence people's voices on issues, not only on elections, but on things like vaccines and health. We are now the party of the little guy. We're the party that stands up to power, and I see that changing the Latino voting base. And now I get to say what the Texas Tribune said 10 years ago, trying to say that Democrats were going to control Texas. Now I get to say demographics is destiny, Democrats, and the Republicans are going to be in charge for a very long time.
So, yeah, well. You look at Myra Flores, right? She stood for God, family values, faith, wholesome living. Doesn't everybody really want that? I mean, isn't that really, to have a free market society, to have a capitalist state that wants you to take chances and shoot for the moon, I saw a post that Myra Flores did where she went to visit SpaceX um, in her district. We've got SpaceX up here in my district too, in McGregor, right down the road. And you know, the industry that's coming to Texas, we've all been talking about this for a long time. The growth of this state is phenomenal. Everyone's coming here because we're the last we're the last ship in the ocean. We're the last place to go. It seems like Florida, of course, but maybe a handful of others. But here you are as the chairman of the party. What do you say to new Republicans coming into our state?
Well, I mean, exactly what you just said. I mean, we have to make our last stand in Texas. If we lose Texas, if Texas turns blue, we're done for as a country. I mean, we've effectively accepted communism as a country. And who gets lost in that? The people who are not well connected, the people who aren't rich, and the people who don't work in government. And that's exactly what working class Texans are. So, I mean, we got to fight. We got to fight for the America we grew up in or immigrated to, the America we love, and because it's at risk right now.
We've got to fight to preserve our Constitution. I mean, that's really they're trying to dismantle that. I swear they're not going to stop until it's shredded. And we have to be bolder, stronger. I think more aggressive than we've ever been. Because look at Beto, look at his people, look at their campaign. They were here in Waco not too long ago. 600 people turned out. Yeah, they've done events where there's 10 people, but we don't have it in the bag necessarily. And I'm kind of concerned. Are you concerned about him, or tell me what your thoughts are there?
I'm concerned about the closeness of some of the statewide races. For example, Beto in some polls has been down 5 points. That should be more in a presidential wave election here. But, I think we have a blueprint for growing that lead. I think it's to increase our working class votes, to focus on South Texas and other Latino areas where people are rejecting the Democratic Party in large numbers. Mm-hmm. We need to convince those people that we're the alternative. And it's to be bold when we are in office so that those new Republicans who voted for our guys see their lives change for a positive as a result. I mean, you brought up Florida. Let's look at that as the blueprint for Republican success. Florida was 0.4% Republican in 2018. Ron DeSantis won by 0.4%. In this election, Democrats aren't even trying to put money into Florida. They've just wrote it off. And some of the polls have DeSantis up 15, 20 points. It's a solid red state now. And it's because he's bold, because workers can see how his policies have affected their lives. I was in a hotel there, and I talked to one of the wait staff who was waiting at our table, and she was wearing a mask because Marriott Hotels made her. It was like one of those mesh masks where you could see her whole face. I said, "Oh, they still make you wear a mask here?"
Masks don't work.
She goes, I mean, and tattoos, and you wouldn't think she would be like a Republican. She goes, "Yeah, but our governor's fighting so that we don't have to anymore." And it was just like, okay.
Yeah, well, that's strong. That's love right there.
Yeah.
And Governor Abbott's fighting for us. When I look at our governor and how he's sending these illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. and to New York, man, that's as bold as it gets right there. That is, addressing that issue. Well, let's talk about the border while we're on it. Do we have the capacity, the ability to build that wall ourselves as state? Can our legislators? I'm not sure, but can we build that wall ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, we have a $240 billion budget. certainly within our budget that we could do it. Some of the materials are already there. And I think that's something we should be doing. As you said, I think the shipping illegals to DC, New York was something that exposed the hypocrisy of Democrats, because now they're saying, oh, we don't want them here.
They're just barely getting a taste of it, and they can't handle it already.
Now, and they were saying there were sanctuary cities 2, 3, 4 years ago. There is one other thing we could be doing, and that what we're talking about, Ken Cuccinelli, former DHS official, Carrie Lake had talked about it as well. And it's sort of a little step further what Governor Abbott's doing. He's apprehending border crossers, taking them to ports of entry to the border. The Constitution allows us, in the case of something like this, which is an invasion, an imminent danger, you can call it, to defend our own border when the federal government fails. And it isn't usually used, but this is an extenuating circumstance. We should have officers placing people back over the border so that there isn't the incentive to come over, and that people don't try. It'll save people from human trafficking. It'll save people from the daily deaths we see at our border, and it will solve so much of the crisis, I think.
So I want to, there's a couple questions. What do you think is the biggest threat to Texas?
The biggest threat to Texas is the biggest threat to our country right now. I could say the border, but I think that's two. I think there's one bigger threat that encompasses the border problem as well, and that's the rise of the extreme left in one of the two major parties in our country. Now, this isn't 10 years ago where Democrats were, the Union Party who wanted a little more government than we wanted, and thought they could engineer big government to work for people. Now, this is different. This is a Democratic Party that wants to tear down and destroy our economy, our country, and our values. And that is the biggest threat right now to our country and the Western world, really. We see it going on in every country.
I don't see how they feel like they win. Like how is it a win when everyone's miserable?
Well, it's a win for them because they're destroying our constitutional rule of law and replacing it with something else. And that's something else we've seen before in Cuba and Venezuela. We've seen it in other countries. That is, those who are connected either with money or with government connections, or who are in government, make out pretty well. Yeah. And those of us who work for a living and who aren't in government or connected, the little guy doesn't make out too well. So, some people do benefit. It just isn't most of us.
It's real sad that their life has ended up to the point where, they don't see America as we do. It's they've been indoctrinated. Let's talk about schools. Let's talk about this whole woke agenda, this LGBTQ or trans pronoun movement. I think we're supposed to be safe from all that, but it's still going on, and there's still efforts being made. Will there be punishments, or can there? I mean, how are we going to really stop them from doing that? Is there a way, or is that the new way everywhere now?
No, I mean, we do need to do something about it. I mean, first and foremost is we haven't been in session since Florida passed their bill, but when we are in session, I know Lieutenant Governor Patrick, other Republicans have favored a parental rights bill, kind of like Florida passed. And to be honest, if any teachers found sexualizing children in the classroom, well, they should lose their teaching license. Mm-hmm. We need to enforce it. We need penalties. Republicans have been always great talking about policy, and Democrats have always been great in implementing their own policies. We need to start thinking more like we're in a street fight rather than we're in a debating society. We need to win, and we need to do it by actually implementing policies that we enforce and that work.
Mm. I want to get back. Well, hold on a second. Let me look at my note here. Yeah, before I move on, I want to move back to Beto O'Rourke. You know, he's anti-gun. He writes weird letters about doing things to kids. He's woke. He's pro-abortion. How does he have so many women who support him?
And he only wears one shirt, which is kind of creepy. But no, I mean, I don't know. It's. I mean, I guess the demeanor, the way he carries himself, but I don't see it. He seems like a petulant child to me every time he talks.
He looks like you said. He, to me, I would not want him in control of our state government. He would destroy it. He would destroy Texas faster than Biden's destroying America. The way I see it.
No, but he's the perfect embodiment of the like wine mom liberal from the suburbs who has basically started this whole woke movement, right? It's the rich suburban white mom who feels guilt and adopts all these crazy left wing ideas. And Beto O'Rourke again is one of the most privileged upbringings of anybody who's ever run for governor in the state of Texas, and it is the exact same way, right? So he's like the perfect model of that group, the perfect leader for that group. But he's not right for Texas.
He's not, and I hope that there are a lot more of us than a lot more of them. So prosperity is a big word for the Republican Party. We promote independence, to be independent, to be prosperous for your family, to support your family, to start a business or to work at a business, and whatever one wants to do to earn a living, right? And to me, Latinos, every Latino I know works. I don't know anyone who doesn't, any Latina who's like standing on the corner begging for money, right? We're typically willing to work. The Republican Party, to me, that connection right there to prosperity in the Republican Party should be driven home really hard, because we are the party of that. We want Latinos, we want everyone to keep more of the money that they earn. In your years now of seeing and visiting with your voters, when you were in office, and now as the chairman, you visit with folks. What's the message? Is there a message? Are there 2 or 3 points that are going to work to draw Latinos to the party that you feel would work? Is it?
Yeah, I think economically you have you have economic policies that, I mean, you don't want to say are stronger. They make you more prosperous. They make our state and our country stronger. But in reality, I mean, what you're talking about is freedom, right? I mean, when my grandfather and my father came over from Italy and emigrated here, they were farmers in Italy and couldn't move up. There was no opportunity. But here, there was opportunity. There was opportunity where my father could go to college and I could go to law school. And it provided freedom. And there was always the freedom of knowing that you could find a job and work without the permission of the government, without the hindrance of the government, start a business, do whatever you needed to do to scrape by and make money when times were tough. So you didn't have to rely on anybody else. You were talking about self-reliance. You were talking about the opportunity to move up class levels. That's freedom. That's what the American dream is. And we stand for that. And the Democrats want to destroy it. I mean, that's the main. That's the main.
You're standing at the door of the party here in Texas as the chairman.
Yeah.
You're standing at the door with open arms. You're saying if you want freedom, if you want the things that we believe in, you want to fight for those things to save this country, come on.
Yeah. I mean, do you love America? Do you think
Do
it's
you
something
love
that
it? Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
protected? Do you love your family? And do you love family life? Do you care
See,
about your family? Do you care about children? Well, that's what we're trying to save.
a lot of Latinos years ago, when maybe that comfort level wasn't quite what it is today, they weren't necessarily willing to put their faith or put their trust in the party, Republican Party. But I see that shift is taking place. I feel like there is about to be an exodus from the
Mhm.
Democrat Party, and I've always said we will have that exodus if we're standing there at the door with our arms open, you know. Um, and
Absolutely.
and and I see that that's how it is. So I commend you, Matt. You know, I've been or Chairman. Sorry, uh,
Max, I've known you for a long
I've
time.
seen you do a lot of good, and I appreciate all that you're doing for our state. I want to discuss one thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll wrap up. So, illegal immigration. I consider you one of the most conservative people in the state. I would consider you a strong right person in your beliefs, right? And to me, this conversation of illegal immigration always gets turned sideways because emotions kind of get involved. To me, we've got millions of illegal immigrants here living among us. Most we don't know who or where they are or their backgrounds. And sure, we can build a wall and we can stop people from coming in. But I've always kind of felt like, what are we going to do about those who are already here? And I think you would agree that we're the Republican Party is not the party of mass deportation and roundup style of solving that problem. Am I? I'm correct in assuming that.
It's not going to be a government official knocking on your door. No, I mean, if you stay out of the justice system, that's generally the way that we've enforced our immigration law.
Yeah,
The people are already here.
yeah,
As they run through the justice system,
yeah,
you deal with individuals who committed crimes against people.
yeah.
I mean, granted, my view of it is if you're here legally, good. We want more legal immigration, less illegal immigration.
Yeah.
And you have to enforce the immigration laws, or else people will come here anyway. But this view of like people kicking down doors at people who are not doing
Well, and
anything
that's what the
never happened.
Democrats, of course, you know, the Democrats and their friends in the media. That's exactly how they position that. But if we can say that's not us, that's not our plan. I've always kind of said, well, what is our plan? You know, how can Republicans lead to solve that problem? And to me, I've always felt like, and I think you told me that at one point that it was a straw man's position that I was holding up. I feel that many conservative Latinos, if they knew that the Republican Party was trying to fix this problem and was offering solutions that are, you know, possible to put in place, it would be game over. They would just hang up their Democrat hat and they would put on their Republican hat and they'd say, okay, they now they care about my cousin. Now they care about my aunt and her two kids. You know, it that's what I feel. And do you
Yeah.
think, I guess in short, do you think there's a way that we as a party could lead on that?
Hmm. I mean, I think right now the most pressing issue, and when I go to South Texas, people tell me this is the most pressing issue. I haven't had a single person in South Texas tell me that amnesty was the most important issue relating to immigration, or
Yeah.
some person in Europe. I don't. That's kind of a loaded term, right? So, I
Well,
some
and
version.
but
When I
that's
went down,
exactly.
when I went down to South Texas, okay, I was floored. I was shocked at how adamant people were that they wanted to stop the crisis at the border, and the inflow of illegal immigration at the border. I mean, shocked. And you talked about before of what happened with, in the House at the close of last session with,
Yeah,
the altercation over the sanctuary city bill, and protesters saying they were there illegal, calling
yeah,
immigration.
yeah.
And they, like,
You called
I had
ICE on
two
them.
people approach me and say, "We know who you are. You're my favorite legislator." I'd be like, "Why? What did I do?" And they'd be like, "Oh, that day at the Capitol."
Yeah,
Like, wow, okay, so you're hardcore anti illegal immigration. I think in the end, most of the people who are here, even if they have relatives who are here illegally, they're here legally, and they know that their life is adversely affected by an open border. Um, we got to take care of that before we talk about anything else. I think that's very important to talk about, and we also have to make people know that they're going to feel safe in their homes. You're not doing door-to-door raids and checks. Now,
yes.
Democrats may do it if you're at the Capitol at January 6th, but there ain't any Republicans that are going to do that.
Yeah, well, so we're still not at the point of taking that, taking that lead on that yet. Which I understand. That's been the response through the years is, well, let's not worry about that. Let's secure the border.
Well,
first.
no, it's because, I mean, as Republicans, people people don't think illegal immigration is going to be solved by granting amnesty, and we can't be the
Yeah.
party of amnesty. And
No,
I know
I wouldn't want to.
so I don't want to say that.
I wouldn't want to
But
grant amnesty to anyone either.
right.
I don't want to. I don't even want to grant citizenship personally. But I want to. I want to know who's here. I want to filter out the good from the bad. That's kind of more my point with all those who are here right now. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, and what we should be doing generally is, start with the justice system. Anybody who goes to the justice system who's not here illegally should be deported. We should have, obviously, I guess, so we got justice system. We have anybody who misses their court date when they're actually at the border, misses the time to return and catch and release. Catch and release can't be catch and release anymore.
yeah.
And I mean, we can start there, and that's always been the way we've enforced.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of potential. I'll leave it there. I think there's a lot of potential for that. Anyway, I'll give you a final word on a message to the voters, message to Republicans here in Texas.
Well, final word is, I think we're going to have a big election. We're working extremely hard. We've touched over 1 million voters so far in our voter efforts. We have a huge election integrity effort. We're seeing huge successes. We opened 5 outreach centers in traditionally Democratic districts, 4 of those in Hispanic areas. And we've seen 2 flips, huge flips in areas that we've had those centers. Like Representative Lujan's district, and of course Myra Flores' district. And I think we're going to see a lot more flip. In the Valley especially, we've seen huge gains among Latino voters. In Cameron County, Texas, Myra won that. And 4 years earlier, the Democrats won that county by 30 points. In like Starr County, Texas, where my friend Ryan Gehen's from, who just switched parties to become a Republican, I was very happy. They had 15 Republican voters 4 years ago in the primary. They had 1,800 Republican voters this primary. We are seeing a shift of monumental proportions. We are seeing a complete political realignment. It's being driven by working class voters and Latino voters.
Yeah, so there is a lot of value in South Texas and in investing there. Those folks are seeing the worst of our border crisis. they're experiencing all the bad things that we talk about. Their economy's been, in trouble for a long time, kind of a depressed area in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So there is now success down there, and I know that it's definitely because the party has been involved. Party may not have been as involved in the past, and maybe it made sense to not, invest in that area, but it's definitely worth investing in. And I appreciate you and the party and all those people who donate to the party. It takes,
And our county parties down there too. I want to make sure.
yes, the county parties are really strong. There's some good leadership in those county parties. So anyway, Chairman Rinaldi, Matt Rinaldi, our Texas GOP state chair, it's been a pleasure to visit with you. And I look forward to talking more and continuing to update our followers and supporters with what's going on in Texas. Thank you for joining us. I'm Duke Machado, Latino StrikeForce, and we're out of here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.